Welcome back to the Running Through the Jungle crew for your somewhat, is it your somewhat roaring reactions? I don't really know. Venom spitting reactions. It could be disappointment reactions. I don't know what to say about the Bengals loss on Monday night against the Washington Commanders. It just was not good. It looked like the offense righted the ship. That was great. That was the only highlight that I could muster up out of this 38-33 loss. I've seen some pretty damning stats on this. I think it was the first time a team has scored over 31 points without turning the ball over and lost. Something along those lines. We actually had 80 more yards than them on total offense, 436 to 356. They just always got in the end zone, and we did not. They scored on every single possession.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good day to be a punter. So with that, let's go with our first thoughts, man. Just your overall recap, first thoughts right off the board. I don't even know where to start, Tim. I'm gonna let you start it off. What was your first thoughts here?
I'm gonna kick the elephant in the room. The defense, non-existent, didn't show up. They forgot they had a game today, or yesterday. Yeah, they didn't. They just forgot. I don't know. I guess Lou was too busy drawing up, I don't know, stick figures of, this is what we should do, and the defense was like, okay, guys, we go play the football. I feel like it was just a bad. I don't know if you guys remember the movie The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our defense looked. Oh. When they first got together and they started playing, their first game against
running into each other and
all kinds of stuff. It just reminded me of that. I was like, I was speechless all day today. When people asked me about, what'd you think of the football game or whatever, I was just like, our defense is crap. That's all I can say. Our defense is crap. Am I going to blame Lou? Yeah, I'm blaming Lou. I've been blaming Lou for these last 3 games now. Lou's game planning. Yeah, we played decent against the Chiefs, but in the long run, defense has cost us the Patriots game. Defense has cost us the Chiefs game, regardless if it was defense or a PI, whatever the hell it was. And defense didn't show up at all against Monday Night Football. I was embarrassed. But, one thing is, it is what it is, and on to week 4, and let's hope that we can turn this around.
I mean, my biggest complaint is from a personal side is I'm too old to stay up that late past my bedtime when I gotta work and get up for work at 5 a.m. the next morning to waste my time with that kind of stuff. Yeah, we won the rushing battle, averaged 6.2 yards a carry to their 3.4. Still don't win. 30 first downs to their 22. Justin, lay it on me, man. What's your first thought on the recap here?
Back in week 1, we said that was about as defeating of a loss that you can possibly take against an inferior opponent at home. Multiply that by 2, and that's exactly what I saw against the Commanders on Monday night. The opportunity was laid out in front of you. I watched teams that had 0-2 records with their backs against the wall coming out with a win. The Baltimore Ravens came out swinging against a much tougher opponent on the road in Dallas, and they won pretty much convincingly until Dallas started roaring back. I watched other teams like the Carolina Panthers,
Red Rifle,
making a switch at quarterback, going on the road at Las Vegas with not as much talent, put up a lot of points and stymie the Las Vegas Raiders on the road. This was the perfect opportunity on Ring of Honor night Yeah, Corey Dillon and Tim Cromrye in the house getting their jackets. The Bengals have played well in these spots, coming off of another 0-2 start. You're thinking that this was the perfect opportunity to right the ship against another inferior opponent. And no disrespect to Jaden Daniels, because I do believe in his career, but that's not really a good Washington team. We all had our reviews regarding his matchups when we evaluated, and we all thought that the Bengals can explode on this Washington's defense. That secondary is not good. They were missing Cleveland Farrell, who was leading the league in pass rushes for them, and he wasn't even on the field. Yes, they had Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. They had two of the more interior defensive linemen that I guess they're highly paid on that side. But it didn't matter just because you thought that the Bengals O-line was going to be up to the challenge of neutralizing them. And what ended up happening, the defense got killed. Our defense got killed. Now, I will be fair. The Bengals offense kicked they behind on their defense too. They did take advantage of a lot of matchups, but it just wasn't good enough. And this had the recipe of a disaster written all over for it when you saw them go down the field on their first drive and matched us our score after we went and got 7, and they initially got 7. I was like, why is the defense this bad? Still, they made no adjustments. I don't want to hear about injuries today, even though that is a reasoning for why the D-line just can't make tackles. But the whole entire defense was just god-awful. And unfortunately, now you're sitting here at 0-3. You played with fire with being 0-2 too long. Eventually, you're going to go 0-3, and it happened today. And now we're asking ourselves, telling ourselves, basically, is the season over? And it just started? And that's frustrating as a Bengals fan. The blame can go so many things and so far around, and we're going to get to that today. But that's my first initial thought. It was an embarrassing of a performance, even though the offense did recap itself together and performed better. Joe Burrow was excellent as far as like passing yards and passing touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over, didn't put the ball in harm's way. Jamar Chase, yeah, he got his little swagger back, but it just wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough.
Yeah, my first thought is looking at the schedule coming into the season, knowing that we've been slow starters the entire time of Zach Taylor's career. So looking at it this year, I thought, man, here we go. This is going to be the first time that we're going to be able to not be 1-3, 0-3, 1-2, 1-4, yada, 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 because we had a favorable schedule coming into the season. And now here we are again. 0-3, backs against the wall. Is this team good enough to run off 10 straight like they have in the past couple of years here or there? On one side of the ball.
Yeah.
Something's got to change on the other side of the ball for me to see that. And that was my first thought was trouble. The Steelers are 3-0 doing the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Not turning the ball over, slowing the game down, playing great defense. And they have, taken care of business against teams they should beat. And we have not. And now, we've dug ourselves a hole again. Yes, listen, it is Miles Murphy, Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, Cam Sample. We'd never even seen the rookie out of Texas A&M. Blanking on his name right now.
McKinley.
McKinley. McKinley Jackson. Yeah. We haven't even seen him, right?
Right.
So, yeah, you're looking at 5-6 players on defensive line. I get it, but next man up mentality, and you got to play. I'm not expecting them to be a top 10 defense with those kind of injuries or whatever, but you can't let a team score on every possession. Mm-hmm. Period, point blank. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from our first thoughts. We'll get into some more analysis a little bit later, probably after the break. But I want to go into the coach's cliff notes here, the post-game interviews with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. and see if you guys have any thoughts on anything you heard from those guys. Tim, did you hear anything that stood out to you?
Only thing that I liked from that interview or post-game interview, whatever you want to call it, was Zach Taylor answering the question of what do you think of CTB's comment with the Washington Commanders and their offense. And he goes, we don't do that. That is, we do not do that. We praise our team, we praise their team, and we move on. And he was pretty pissed when that comment was asked. And, you know, I don't blame him. You know, as a Bengals fan, or even with our podcast wise, I'm not going to be going and talking crap to another team or about the opposing team, because there's going to be times where foot and mouth is going to happen, and foot and mouth is happening right now. You know, yeah, we can say that we have, you know, the best offense in the world, but we have the worst defense in the league. That's what's happening right now. I don't care what CTB's talking or whatever he's saying about, you know, X, Y, and Z team or player or whatever. Why don't you go out there and play ball, prove it. When you can prove it and you can win these games, when you can get a W and after these games, then you can talk all the smack you want. But until then, we're 0-3. That's all there is to it. I wouldn't be talking any smack right now, because right now we're one of 3 worst teams in the NFL right now.
So with me, with that talking smack and back and forth and all that stuff, I don't really buy in too much to bulletin board material. When you're a competitive pro athlete, like, you're going out there to win the game regardless. I bulletin board material to me has always been a little bit weird. I don't really believe in that, but I will say this: if you're going to talk trash, do it like on the level, like, where you're not disrespecting the other team, or be funny about it. You know what I mean? Like Ocho used to be funny about it. I sent Pepto-Bismol to him because I'm going to make him sick all day, you know, whatever. Things like that. But just like his comments were a little bit, I didn't love them. I thought either be wittier with it or just say, I believe in my ability. I'm going to go out here and prove something. Whatever. You talk all the smack you want to. On the field, you got to talk smack. Some guys got to do it to get their mind right and do whatever. Say whatever you want. I don't care. You know, leave the immediate family out of it. Other than that, go for it. Justin, what did you take anything away from these post-game interviews?
The only thing I'm taking away is that they're not on the same page as much as I thought that they were. This is not a connected team like Zach Taylor liked to preach in the beginning when he became the head coach. They're not playing like a unit all together, and it's showing up on the field. And everybody's making a lot of big scrum about the immediately after the game ended that Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, and I believe Coach Lou, if he was in it, they went into a room separately before they came out and delivered the press conferences with each. Look, people can speculate what was said or not said, whatever. At the end of the day, I don't care. Because I think that Joe Burrow needed to lay into his coaching staff, or whatever the case it may be, because things are not okay right now. And nobody needs to be sending a message of positivity, thing like, okay, by no means, you know, we're not out of it. I think Joe Burrow's message stuck a little bit with me more, because he is the real leader of this ball club. And I know that he may not display his frustrations so much like you would see other verbal quarterbacks would in NFL history, like a Tom Brady. But his body language speaks a lot of eloquent. And I saw it last week against the Kansas City Chiefs when he thought he was going to be able to see the defense get a 4th and 16, get a stop. He's going to walk out on the field and kneel the ball, and then game over, we get a win. We come out of Arrowhead with a win. And on 4th and 4, on a drive where you finally thought that the defense figured it out to make them punt the ball, Jaden Daniels basically just converts and he gets a touchdown, and Joe Burrow's just walking on like, you got to be kidding me. That told me a lot more than I needed to see from here. And quite frankly, I hope that Zach Taylor is preaching a different kind of message, because his old message is stale now, at least to the fan base. I said this before after the week 1 loss. I'm going to say it again. now that we've now been 0, now we're 0-3. His message is stale now to the fan base, and it won't be long before it permeates throughout the locker room. They did not handle the contract situation or during the offseason at all, and it's bled through the entire locker room, and you're seeing it.
That's what I was going to ask you about. I don't think it's just that or just this or just it's a snowball effect, right? Didn't handle the money situation right. Like we kept kicking the can down because we're going to pay this guy and then we're going to pay that guy. And we haven't paid anybody other than Burrow. And then you put that with the losses and with the comments and with the, Chase being unhappy. And there's a whole bunch of it, injuries, and all of it snowballs. And then what do the coaches do from there? They've got to galvanize that locker room, and they've got to get everybody on the same page, or it's just gonna unravel.
It's going to unravel so quick and so fast that we're talking about, we need to make a trade to fix this team. What if the opposite happens to where we're unraveling so fast and now we need to sell off parts in order to rebuild now? Nobody's not having that discussion because after what I saw last night, that is not out of the question for me anymore. And now I have to bring that up in a conversation because we'll probably talk about it later. But in my opinion, where's the first win going to come from now? I don't see it. It should have happened 2 out of the 3 times at the very least in these first 3 weeks. And now you got a Carolina team coming up on deck that they're feeling pretty confident in themselves. They're returning right back home. They haven't gotten a home win yet in front of that crowd. Andy Dalton is coming in to put a nail in the final coffin, potentially probably put a nail in the final coffin of Zach Taylor's head coach career as a Bengal. How to turn tables with that office reference. And now the Bengals fans are going to just be saying like, dude, what are we going to do? Like, what is this team going to do? You sold us that this vision of Super Bowl or bust kind of priority. And dude, you don't even look like a team that's going to finish 3rd place in your division and you're last place. And you're playing like you're the worst team in the NFL right now, and that's unacceptable. And no one's going to take these words and think that you're going to just send a hoorah message and now next thing you know we're going to be playing. No one cares about these press conferences like that. We need to see it show up in practice. We need to show up on tape, and we need to see them make moves and execute these things because it's bad now. It's full panic mode. It's in my hashtag. It's panic time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Mine says defense ? So we'll leave it at that for my comments. We're going to take a quick break right here before we get into a little bit more analysis of what went wrong in the game and what to do to change that. But if you got a quick second here, now's a great time to go over, hit that like, hit that subscribe, get those notifications. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, give us that 5-star review. We appreciate you guys rocking with us as you do every week here, getting all your Bengals and AFC North news. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors. All right, welcome back to our roaring reactions. The mood around here is exactly what you expect if you did get to watch that game Monday night with the Washington Commanders beating Cincinnati Bengals 38-3. Quite a coming out for Jaden Daniels, I will say that. Young man looked really good, set an NFL record for highest percentage completion percentage as a rookie with over 20 passes. A little bit of how he looked and a lot of bit of how we looked, I think, also. But he did execute when called upon, so you got to give him that. Mm-hmm. So let's go. We'll quit talking about the coach's cliff notes. My only thing I had was, and I think Justin kind of alluded to it, was Joe Burrow's. Joe Burrow didn't say a lot, but he was very, to me, introspective and really thinking more about things as he answered them as I normally see. So that was an interesting tidbit for me. That was the only thing that I had to add to those. But what I want to talk about is who's catching your blame. So we've all agreed the defense was a sieve. So where is that blame on you? Is it the the Jimmies and Joes? Is it the coaches, the Lou's, if you would, the Zacks and the Lou's? Is that the front office not addressing things correctly? Where do you place most of your blame here? And I'm Tim. I'm gonna start this off with you. Who's catching your blame?
One thing I heard was that the Cincinnati Bengals have spent the most money on their offense than any other NFL team. That being said, I agree with that because look at our defense. Look who we have on our defense. Look at the rookies we have on our defense. With what we paid Nick Scott last year and what we're paying Geno Stone this year, we could have extended Jesse Bates easily with everything that's going on. I wasn't impressed with how with Geno Stone and Von Bell played last night. They played slow. It seemed like they were 5,000 miles from the ball when they should have been, right there up their butts. But it just seemed like they played slow. Their tempo was slow. They weren't on the same page.
I definitely think Bell looks a step slower than he did last time he was in that uniform.
Yeah, only plus about Geno Stone that I can give him is that big hit across the middle of the field. That's great. Happy for him. But other than that, but what I'm trying to get to is that we need to spend some money on that defense. We need to get a veteran in there, a game changer, somebody that's going to wreak havoc and get this defense on the same page. Look at all these six. If I was a Steelers fan, I'd be happier than hell with the defense that they have. Mm-hmm. And then with our offense, this would be a Super Bowl team regardless, because there'd be no way in hell that anybody could stop us.
But you look at what they've spent on defense, Tim. Right. You can't afford to do both of those things. I mean,
right. Now, I'm Christmas wish listing, okay?
Yeah.
So give me a break here. So what I'm saying though is we need to bring this whole Trey Hendrickson getting off the line and causing some pressure or whatever. Yeah, that works great against slower in the pocket quarterbacks. But when it comes to people like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, you need
to have more than one, and you got to have pressure up the middle.
Yeah, so I'm going to place the blame on the entire Bengals organization, including Lou, because they're not doing any. They did I don't care what anybody says. They did absolutely nothing to upgrade our defense. Lou has done nothing to change his game plan. It's the same vanilla game plan that he had last year, all or nothing. It's not working. It's not going to work. So, yeah, the whole Bengals organization is at blame for this defense. It's not changing. It's not fixed.
So, Tim has thrown the blame grenade at the whole organization.
Damn Skippy.
Justin, do you have somebody in your sights? Are you taking a shot at somebody here with your coaching blame? Are you also throwing a grenade, or are we more of a shotgun here? What do you got going on as far as who do you give most of the blame to here?
Funny thing about a shotgun is that people think that when you shoot a shotgun, it just goes straight into one designated area, and it's not the case. When you shoot a shotgun, it spreads. It has a spread to it. It hits in multiple different things.
But yeah, bird shot. That's what you're using.
Okay. Here's how I'm going to do this, because yes, the defense in the entirety is the absolute blame for this Monday night loss. Horrible performance. They didn't even punt out once, and too many touchdowns allowed, not enough field goals, or even whatever the case it was. No turnovers too. But I'm going to rank this blame game in an order of 1, 2, and 3. They're all getting blamed, but just the ranking in order. My number one blame is the front office. Duke Tobin and company, they allowed the Jesse Bates of the world to walk away when you could have recaptured him and you could have signed him. You didn't allow him to get the guaranteed money that he deserved. He was one of your stalwarts and your core value players that helped you get out from the basement in the bottom of the barrel since he got drafted here in 2018. And now you said that I think we're okay. And you replaced them with draft picks that really hasn't materialized to anything. You signed free agents that you thought you can get on the cheap, when the reality was that those players are just not very good. Sorry. And not to mention that we can talk about the DJ Readers of the world. I was okay with losing DJ Reader because you're not going to know what type of production you was going to get with him.
Agreed.
He wasn't very good against the run last year, even though he was the only stalwart on the D-line last season. But the D-line still was allowing so many explosive runs, and they couldn't stop the run. But you lose him, and you decided to replace him with nothing. You tried to sell us on the Sheldon Rankins signing and extending BJ Hill, but the reality is those guys are always been career role players, and they've never been great against the run. Really, they've been interior D-line pass rushers for a majority of their career, but they're not lead stalwarts. There's a reason why Sheldon Rankins has bounced around from team to team throughout his career. There's a reason why BJ Hill, who you decided to select over Larry Ogunjobi, by the way. There's a reason why BJ Hill has not produced the upper level echelon of I'm going to be that guy on the D-line that you can invest in long term. You tried to do it the inexpensive way route, and sometimes that's perfectly okay to do. That's great to do when you're already paying guys the big money, but you haven't paid anybody else the big money. Jamar didn't get a contract extension. T. Higgins got a 1-year franchise tag deal. The only person you signed and re-signed to a long-term big money contract was Joe Burrow, and that money hadn't kicked in yet. We're not talking about the small little deals like you did with Sam Hubbard, extending him, with Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. We're not talking about those contracts. We're talking about big money deals. I can understand the front office moves if you were to do that, and you're allocating money and stuff this way and that way, but you're not. So they get my number one blame. Number two blame is Lou Anarumo. He is not Lou Dini. He never really has been. He was a guy that knew how to craft certain game plans when he played a certain type of quarterback, but that has not transitioned on a week-to-week basis like everybody kept thinking that it was. It was more so that the defense was always predicated on this bend but don't break, but now it breaks. And that recipe is so disastrous now. You do not elevate Trey Hendrickson's game. He always lines up on the same spot, right over the left tackle, and that's so frustrating because the great pass rushers knows how to move around. They know how to move from the interior.
Let me give you this analogy for what you're talking about with Lou.
Sure.
You don't have to be a genius to figure out a Rubik's Cube. You just got to figure out the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
And he's figured out a great defensive scheme against Patrick Mahomes. And that's kind of where I think his bread and butter is. But to Tim's point and to your point, when he plays against quarterbacks that are mobile in the pocket, he has problems. He doesn't change up the scheme. He goes back to a base defense. So
to the point of you know how to figure out Mahomes. Actually, the reality is you kind of don't. Patrick Mahomes have had good game against the Bengals defense too now. What rescued him is Joe Burrow's always been able to outperform Patrick Mahomes even when Mahomes was having better games. Think about the first time that these two teams met up. Those two quarterbacks met up against each other. They were both throwing haymakers. Mahomes got out to a storming big lead. But what happened? Joe Burrow fought and answered back. Same thing in the AFC Championship game that following season. Mahomes got to a big lead. Joe Burrow answered and stormed back. In the AFC Championship game the following year, or before that, it was kind of like Joe Burrow just led the charge. He was the alpha. He was the guy that he was going to overcome and get us to a win. But remember, in that third game, when we went 3-0, don't forget, there was a key fumble that if that fumble didn't happen that Jermaine Pratt forced on Travis Kelce, guess what? Who knows that drive could have ended up in a touchdown or not? My point is saying is that while I'm about to call him Lou Dini. Let me get that out of my vocabulary now. While Lou Anarumo has had his successes and had his days against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who to me is going to be an MVP this year based off of what I saw so far, he's had some success against them in certain spots when he plays against these guys, mainly Mahomes. The reality is Joe Burrow has better performances that's outweighed his success, and he's kind of magnified what he can do. But the reality is, man, he's not built and he does not cut his chops in the AFC North. And that's the disappointing aspect of this, which leads to me my number 3 overall blame. And yes, that is the Jimmy Jin Joes on the defensive side of the ball. They're not playing with the aura. When I think of AFC North football, I think of physicality on defense first before anything. running the ball with great authority and effectiveness before the second thing. But defense has always been the calling card of the AFC North. Look at the other three defenses in the division.
We have way
Baltimore,
too many missed tackles.
Man, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. They're not missing that many tackles. And I saw Cleveland lose a game against the Giants, and they had stopped an explosive, what could have been even more explosive day by making one simple switch, putting Denzel Ward on Malik Neighbors. Next thing you know, he's neutralizing the whole second half. Now, they still lost the game because their offense, Deshaun Watson, is not good, whatever. But at the end of the day, their defense is playing with absolute confidence. Baltimore played with confidence. And yes, Dallas stormed back and almost threw for almost 400 yards to put them back in that game. But realistically, the Dallas Cowboys was getting trounced by the Ravens defense, who was playing confident on the road, might I add. And we don't need to talk about Pittsburgh's defense because you guys have already mentioned it. TJ Watt, you're not running on that team. You're just not. And so with that mentality, you got to understand that you got to be able to compete with those defenses. When you go against those other three teams in your division, sorry, the offensive days that we've had against Commanders last night, it's not going to happen like that very easily. They know what to game plan you for. That's why they're the division your opponents. But the defense is not ready to see what the other teams in the division has. And that's why the Jimmies and Joes of the world on the Bengals defense itself gets my third ranking of the blame too. They're just not playing up to that standard.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I flip-flop your top two. I do give some blame, and I'm going to call it not just Duke Tobin, but the whole Bengals front office. Mm-hmm. And here's the reason why I do. And I've kind of alluded to this leading up to this point. We rolled over, what, $9 million or $12 million from last year's cap? We're under this year's cap again. We're holding on to this cap money to pay somebody for signing bonuses for this, for that. So we didn't add any other pieces. And we didn't sign anybody. What are we doing? Like, if you're saving money for something, you have to get that thing accomplished or pivot off that thing. And you did nothing to improve your team with millions of dollars just sitting there idle.
Mm-hmm.
That's inexcusable to me. You got to figure out a way to do that. But, and I'm going to thank Tate. For those of you who know, that's right over here, the Homies podcast flag over here. Tate hit it and said, not to get in Bengals business, but I don't think Zach Taylor is a good coach. He's just been riding the Burrow train.
Bro, we agree with you, Tate. Just saying, we kind of agree with you.
It's him and Lou both. Lou was on the hot seat, had one really good year, top 10 defense. And if you look at it over his tenure here, that's it. One top 10 defense. And I thought, I thought he's had some pretty good talent here too. The other thing that I look at is Zach Taylor. I talked about how he has done the same thing year after year, expecting a different result and hasn't gotten anything different, right? It's the definition of insanity. Not playing people in the preseason, getting off to the slow start, doing the same things. And I get it. It comes from that Sean McVay coaching tree. But here's what I look at around the league for really good coaches. Sean McVay being one of them. Flores, the defensive coordinator at the Vikings. I look at these guys that are having success. There's a lot more emotion in their offense. And we don't have that. We line everybody up, and we're going to beat you off the line. Can they beat them off the line? Yes, we have two elite receivers. I get that. But why not make the game easier? Why not give them a running start? Why not use Miami when they're playing well, and have a quarterback that's not unconscious? They run Tyreek Hill in motion a lot. Why don't we do that with Chase? You don't see stuff like that. Our offense looks very vanilla compared to the league. To the successful, the good offenses of the league to me. Then you look at the defense. So they're in a situation right now where they had to stack the box. I get it. We eat 5 defensive linemen out. You're pulling guys off the street that are 34 years old. I get you're in a bad situation, so you got to change some things up. But every time they brought people, I knew who they were bringing, where they were bringing them from. And if somebody was dropping, I knew who it was because it wasn't going to be Trey Hendrickson. So it was going to be the other edge that would drop to the flat because you're not dropping Trey Hendrickson.
Nope.
And that was all they did the whole game. So you don't worry about people dropping in and out. You watch some of the film on Minnesota and some of their defensive pressures and where they're moving people. Atlanta's doing it right now. There's a bunch of teams in the league that are doing those things. In ours, it looks like, you talk about looking like a college offense. We look very vanilla on both sides of the ball right now. And when you are lacking 5 defensive linemen on an already questionable room, that's probably our biggest concern of a position room going into this year. And you aren't doing anything, out of the ordinary or scheming up a whole bunch of different things to try and confuse people, or you're going to get what you get. If you're just going to line up and play people like that or show all out blitz and bring all out blitz, then you're going to get that result every single time.
It's the worst kind of feeling in the world knowing that everybody has the book on you without even you giving them the book. That's the worst feeling that I see. And that's what I see when I watch this Bengals defense. Like I said, all that it is doing is just zeroing in on, hey, who's their most impactful player on defense? Well, it's Trey Hendrickson. Who are their corners? Well, they got Cam Taylor-Britt, but is he really that guy yet? No, not really. Sometimes he'll play the number 1 receiver, but sometimes he's not. So you can test them. People feel confident that if you neutralize Trey Hendrickson enough, you can test the secondary eventually. And like y'all said it earlier in the show, Von Bella is a lot slower this time than last time he was in the Bengals uniform 2 years ago. And it shows on film.
And you don't have to be a lot slower in that position to be a lot different.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Which makes people need to understand this is probably why what's his name? Dejon Anthony was on the field on that 4th and 16 last week because he was there fast enough to at the very least get to the ball to try to break it up. And unfortunately, the penalty happened. But what if that was Von Bell in that position, in that same position? That would have been a Rasheed Rice catch. I'm sorry. It would have been a catch.
We got our boy Chase Younts Media peeping in on us. We appreciate you watching, Chase. So lack of any other pass rush production. This is sickening. Jaden Daniels had unlimited time.
3.13 seconds in the pocket. That is a long time in NFL times to throw a football.
The NFL average is what, 2.56?
It's probably even less than that. Like Joe Burrow had a good amount of time too, but again, that's because Washington doesn't have a great pass rush. The Bengals got Trey Hendrickson at the very least, and you thought that they had some semblance of other pass rush with Joseph Ossai. Joseph Ossai was getting his ankles broken left and right, man. It was just sickening to watch that, man. It really sickening.
I don't. Anything to add to that, Tim?
No, it is what it is. It's not, like I said, it's not getting any better. It hasn't gotten any better from last year to this year. My question is where was Jordan Battle last night? I didn't see Jordan Battle in any plays that I recall. I know you were probably in bed by halftime, but
I watched the entire game.
Oh, okay.
Same. I watched the entire game too.
I didn't see Jordan Battle at all on the field. Where was he at? It's just I don't know. I don't want to blame just the defensive line, but our secondary and safeties did not look good last night either. They both did not look good.
Yeah.
But that whole defense looked bad.
Chase asked where Sam Hubbard is as well.
That experiment's going to come to an end eventually too, because Sam Hubbard ain't doing nothing.
When Miles Murphy returns, he is the starter opposite Trey Hendrickson.
I hope you're right. I hope you are right.
He better
but
be.
As of right now, it ain't going to matter because right now this defense, like I said before, and I say it again, it was Swiss cheese. Holes everywhere.
So, Tim, does this lead you? Is this your most disappointing loss so far of the season out of the three, or would you pick one of the other two, New England or Kansas City?
I'd say this is my most disappointing of the year so far. Because there were some, coulda, woulda, shoulda happens against Patriots. Coulda, shoulda, woulda happens versus Kansas City. In this game, there was no coulda, shoulda, woulda anything. There was just plain old crap show on defense, and it was nothing we could do about it. I know Joe Burrow said that he missed some opportunities and stuff, but there was just bad play on the defense. McPherson should have made that damn field goal from 48 yards. We didn't just give him an extension for nothing. And the ref should have called that. And the ref should have called that pass interference during that 2-point conversion, but it doesn't matter anyways, because if it was a tie ball game 38-38, I'm sure when the Commanders got the ball, they would have marched it down the damn field and we would have lost anyways. I told you in the second quarter, what did I say to you, Brandon? I said 0-3. I said 0-3, and that was it. And I didn't say nothing else the rest of the night.
I think, which was nice. Thank you. Geez, I kid. So I don't know, man. McPherson, I'm not gonna. What's he 8 for 9 this year, or something like that, or 7 for 8? I'm not gonna scream at him for missing. Is hit 90%. I'm happy. Justin, you taking this one as well as your most disappointing for the season?
I think you have to. Week 1, it was just a series of unfortunate events, and it just felt weird. It's like, why is this happening? Like the fumble in the red zone when as you were about to see the tight end score, the Mike Gesicki drop, which that could have been clearly a touchdown. And I know the rules analyst said that a day later, saying, "Oh, that should never have been reversed." It was incomplete. All right, let's stop the nonsense. Whatever. It was just a lot of just unfortunate luck that just the ball bouncing away, and obviously toppled with the defense just getting ran on all throughout the ground. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. That led to the unfortunate upset in week 1 at home. But this one was just 10 times more than that, because as what Tim mentioned, I'll echo it a little bit here too. There was none of that, the whole lucky charade thing that just the ball bounced in their hands. No, it was the situation of you got severely outcoached from offense on defense. Our offense, was great, but they're going to catch a little bit of strays here too. There was a play before the end of the first quarter. They was going for on 2nd 11, and I was just saying in real time, like, just let the clock bleed down, go into the second quarter. But no, before the clock went to 0 to end the first quarter, Burrow takes a snap and throws a quick screen, a bubble screen out to, I believe, Andre Yoshivas, and it's incomplete, or he gets tackled immediately. And now that sets up a 3rd and long unnecessarily, when if you would have just waited to the end of the first quarter, you would have had a free timeout to game plan and devise up a strategy of, let's see how we can attack their defense again, because they was killing the defense. All right, so they're going to catch.
They went up tempo there because they were worried that T. Higgins fumbled that ball, though, right?
I agree, but that was the play before. But the second time, or they could have just ran the ball. Whatever, they were running the ball really well.
They were.
Why call that? Yeah. Like why make that play? So they're going to catch a little bit of strays for that too. But overall, I get it. The offense was impressive, but how much of that is we going to think, like, how much of this is garbage time? Because they didn't play with the lead. They played with the lead at the beginning of the snap. But when they recognize that they have to be in a shootout now, all of a sudden the mentality on the offense changed. And I credit them for being able to keep up and sustain as best as they could. But yes, settling for field goals and missed field goals in the red zone when they're getting touchdowns is just not acceptable, especially against this team. But this is the most disappointing because you let a rookie quarterback, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade at Jay Daniels here. I think he's going to be a good pro in this league. But the Bengals defense made him look so much better than what he actually is. He's not that good. He's not 91% completion percentage off of 11 true passes good, off of 2 incomplete passes that seemed like throwaways for the most part. And then the last touchdown throw that he threw to Terry McLaurin, that was all Terry McLaurin making that play for him, because that looked like that should have just been going out of bounds. but McLaurin just made one hell of a catch, beating Dax Hill. Dax Hill got there early. They didn't throw a flag there. So I don't even want to put the refs in the conversation this game, even though, yes, the 2-point conversion was nonsense and that they didn't call that. But whatever, man. They got the touchdown at the end. And at that point, it's like, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. How did you go on that final drive when it was 2nd and 21? You got a sack. And then they convert that off of a 4th and 4. They converted on 2 4th and 4s. And it was like, you finally thought the defense was going to get the stop when the offense needed it the most. And it was just so deflating when they converted and didn't get a touchdown afterwards. And then by that point, you just already knew the game was lost. And now it's even more apparent that this team got bigger problems after we all thought that they took a step forward the week prior against a more superior opponent with the Chiefs. So this is my most disappointing loss so far. But the sad reality is, Brandon and Tim, is that we probably might be putting another team in another game in the future because we don't know where this team is going anymore.
Yeah, I think this is the most devastating loss. I think this is the most deflating loss. But because of some of the things you touched on, Scary Terry made a heck of a play. Jaden Daniels played his butt off. I was already concerned with the running game with Robinson and the Swiss Army knife of Eckler. So I picked, if you go back and look at some of my other tape earlier in the year, I thought Washington was going to be much improved this year, especially if they got pretty good quarterback play. So I think I'm more disappointed in the New England game because that offensive line should not have been able to hold up against us for 170 yards. And we had less people injured there. This is a much more deflating loss to me, though. This really is deflating.
I want to bring up something to you that I saw, and you probably saw it too. Let me see if it'll alter your mind a little bit to change your mind. You know, the Commanders had 10 players on the field at one time on offense, and they still got a first down, right? On our defense.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
That's great.
It happened. They had 10 players on the field at one point on a snap on offense, and they still converted and got a first down.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, it's just a deflating loss to me. But I think that Washington Commanders are a better team than New England, so we'll see how it ages, though. We'll see how it ages.
I see where you're going with that, and I do believe that Washington is primarily poised to get better as the season progresses, and they're probably in the mode where they're feeling like they're hitting their stride. But again, the opponent matters, the defense matters. Switch the Bengals and switch out the Bengals for the Ravens if they had to play Baltimore on the road on Monday night. You think they're getting that win? No way. No, they're just not. And that defense is not going to allow Jaden Daniels, Roquan Smith and company. That defense is not going to allow stuff like that to continue. Like, no way. And look, the Ravens have taken a step back so far this year too, as opposed to where they were last year. But it's clear that they've righted the ship. The Steelers defense, and I know Tate, you got your boy Tate here in the comment that you just put in his comments. Do you think Pittsburgh will allow Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders to go in there in Acrisure Stadium on Monday night, week 3, and bully that defense like that?
No.
I rest my case, man. Like, this is the most disappointing one for me personally. But again, I understand we all have our picks of the litter, but I get your point.
So do you think there's a possibility to right the ship? And if so, how? Justin, I'll let you run it back.
Look, everything's possible. You got Joe. I don't want to sound like a casual person, but I do believe it. If you do got Joe Burrow, you do have a chance. But we got to stop looking at Joe Burrow to save this team every single time we get into this situation. This is the 3rd year in a row that we've been started off 0-2. Now is the first time that we started off 0-3. And yes, 2020, we were like 0-1, 0-2-1, whatever the case it was. And we weren't a good defense then. But it's asking a lot from Joe Burrow to always trying to pull this team out of the cellar dweller of bad and horrible starts to carry them through along on the playoffs. But if I'm being honest, if we're talking about righting the ship, I think we got to define the question here. Because if we're talking about righting the ship in terms of, do you think the Bengals can right the ship and make the playoffs and will still win a division and make a deep postseason run? The answer to that question, to me personally, from what I saw, is no. That's over. In that context, the season is over for me in that context. but can they still produce and field a competitive team to still eke out a lot of wins and maybe go 9-8 like they did last year, 8-9? Sure, that's still on the table, and maybe it might land them as a wild card team in the playoffs, because the rest of the AFC, while we like to talk about how competitive it is, it's still kind of a down season for a lot of these teams. The only true contending teams right now in the AFC, when you think about it, like that's living up to it, Buffalo and Kansas City. Other teams, yeah, in Pittsburgh is 3-0, but the rest of the brutal part of the schedule is going to come later in the season. But Buffalo and Kansas City, those are the only two teams right now that you feel the most comfortable in and say, like, okay, they're going to be there at the very end. This Bengals team should have been in that conversation, but they're just not right now.
Yeah, I was thinking about it's funny you said I was thinking about my Power 5, and there's a couple teams in there that are 3-0 that have looked really good. I need to see more out of. Pittsburgh being one of them. Pittsburgh's, if they take care of business against a couple of good opponents coming up here, I mean, you gotta start looking at them as a Power 5.
Agreed.
But we need to see them pass that test though.
Here's my prediction, because Pittsburgh knows how to beat the Ravens. They struggle. The Ravens struggle against the Steelers all the time. The Browns, for some reason, they can't beat Pittsburgh either. And the Bengals could. Joe Burrow can, but the Bengals can't, if that makes sense. Here's Pittsburgh's real test. Can they go out and beat Kansas City? Kansas City got to travel to Pittsburgh this year. I don't know, man. I think that defense can knock off the Chiefs. They can be the team to beat Kansas City this season if it's not Baltimore or Cincinnati. I think it could be Pittsburgh if Justin Fields continues his improvement, and I think he will. Man, I think that they could be the team to kind of knock them off a bit, because Kansas City's not really playing like high-level, top-end football, neither like we're used to seeing from years past. They kind of sort of feel like they were teetering on the brinks a little bit, like coming from last year, and now they start off the season. But you just know, because Patrick Mahomes is Andy Reid, and they're going to continue to get better. That's all we lean our hats on when it comes to them. But they got stuff to prove too.
All right, Tim, I'm going to throw the same question to you. Can we and how do we right the ship?
Well, we already know what the question is on how. The defense has got to get better. You're not going to, there's a saying, defenses win championships. In this case, if we're keep on down this road that we're going right now, we'll be lucky to not end up being the worst team in the NFL. So is it possible for us to right the ship? There's always a possibility, There's a possibility that I walk out in my front lawn and I get hit by a bus. There's a possibility that I'm walking the dog and I get hit by an airplane. There's always a possibility to right the ship. But historically, an 0-3 team isn't making the playoffs. Or, isn't making the Super Bowl. I think there was a handful of teams that started off 0-3 that did make the playoffs. But besides the point, I think I'm so tired of this excuse of, Joe Burrow starting off slow. Joe Burrow's coming back from injury, or, we're rusty. That's always the same excuse that we use, and I've used it already too. We have to starting just out the gates, everybody on 100%, go, and we win football games. Because as of right now,
they got to play games at game speed. They got to play preseason games at game speed to get to that.
So, anyway, I was looking at the rest of the schedule. It's gonna be a hard. These next 14 games is gonna be rough. They're gonna be real rough. I don't care that we're playing Carolina next week. I don't care if we have the Broncos on the schedule. I don't care if we have the Chargers with no Justin Herbert on the schedule. It don't matter. Right now, the way the Cincinnati Bengals are playing, it's do or die. We got to turn this around. The defense has got to step up. Lou's got to get his head out of his rear end. The Jimmies and the Joes need to execute and get on the same page. There's no more excuses. There's no more, we'll watch the film, or we're taking it day by day. I'm sorry, but this day by day and watching the film stuff, y'all better be starting to do a better job, because we're going to be in a lot of trouble when when November comes along, and there's a possibility that we're 1-7, 1-8. That's it. That's end of the season. Done. But I'm not going to count us out. I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. I've lived through, that's one thing that I'm not going to sweat. I've grown to be tough when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't care what Cincinnati or the Pittsburgh Steelers fans say, Browns fans, Ravens fans, the people over here in Seattle talk crap about the Bengals. I don't care. I honestly don't give a crap. But I'm going to tell you this right now, there's always a possibility that we could turn this around. There's a chance, there's a good chance that we could go 14-3. Maybe the NFL wrote the script that the Bengals start off 0-3 and go 14 straight wins. We win the AFC North, and we go to the Super Bowl. Maybe they wrote the script that way. I don't know.
In order for me to think it's that they've ride the ship and had a successful season, we've lost half the games we can lose already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an uphill battle, but as Justin said earlier, man, I got a puncher's chance because I got Joe Burrow suiting up.
Yeah.
What I think needs to happen, I think this is a players only meeting kind of. Mm-hmm. This is let's be accountable to each other situation, and they need to play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase said it. We need to be one team. We need one. Even though part of his situation and rather he caused the situation or the Bengals front office, that situation with his contract may have caused some of this animosity of not being one team too. But it's good to hear him say that, and let's get it back and galvanize his team. They need to play for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Any final comments before we get going?
I don't. All I gotta say is let's hopefully they right this ship. They fix this defense. They get on the same page. We as Bengals fans have taken on. Have seen our team
suffered enough.
Yeah, like one joke I always made. I feel like a battered wife when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. 1 minute it's, oh, I love you. Next minute it's, I hate you. So it's just I'm hoping we turn it around. But like Brandon says, hope is not a strategy, and I 100% agree.
Justin?
I've basically just exhausted everything that I wanted to say on this episode. So I thank you two for being able to bear with me as I cook this team regarding this disappointing loss. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still football season. I'm still going to enjoy myself watching other NFL games, including ours for the time being, until the season is officially over. And you know what? They got to understand that things are not perfect. Things are not great right now. And you just hope that they can rebound and see where it goes from there. Unfortunately, they ruined golden opportunities looking at the schedule that they could have gotten off to a blazing start, and they've ruined it. And that's their fault. That's their own fault. Their own decision making, their own process, their own flow basically just led to them to this moment where we are right now. And now we're searching for even more answers when we never even answered the questions that we had originally. So with that being said, that's all I really got on today's subject. I'm ready to move on to see how we're going to prepare for the Carolina Panthers and Andy Dalton, who looked like Red Rifle of old, like 2015
Carolina.
Andy Dalton. Yeah, we're on to Carolina, man. And like I said, Andy Dalton, he's going to want to get his get back. But for those fans also that's saying that, oh, man, we got to play Andy Dalton. We don't beat Andy Dalton. Man, stop, all right? Yeah, I like Andy, but he ain't Joe, okay? We make him look like he's Joe if we put that defense out there against him. But nonetheless, man, let's just play the game and see how the cards and decks unfold. But I will say this, though. If I see another repeat performance on defense next week against that Carolina Panthers team, I think that it is probably you need to start pulling the trigger. Oh, you might need to see an in-season firing on a coordinator. You might not fire Zach Taylor, but I think you need to make a change at defensive coordinator at this time. And I hate to get that extreme, but enough is enough. And I think that this front office needs to realize that.
Yeah, they definitely need to scheme something up and play better. And listen, I know hope isn't a strategy, but it's about all we got sitting here because we can't make any moves and any calls. So
Right.
that's part of the frustration of it is we care so much. We're so passionate about the team, and there's really nothing we can do. The only thing I can do is with my fantasy football team, and I'm 2-1, and my number one pick is in Germany getting his Achilles looked at. So I'll take it. With that said, check us out. We'll be back on tomorrow night. We'll be back on live. We're going through the jungle. Getting your podcast. That'll be Thursday morning drive time. So we appreciate you guys rocking with us as always. Check out Tim with the Who Day Weekly, and check out Chase. I saw he already is uploading right now, I believe, his cut to the chase Bengals Blitz. So check those out, and we'll be back here tomorrow night. We appreciate you rocking with us. Let's right the ship. Get some defense played. Get that W this week. Let's see what we talk about tomorrow night with these Carolina Panthers. I don't want to lose to the Red Rifle.